Hi guys, PMQs today was pretty terrible. Both Labour and the Tories argued over immigration. And while it's normal for the Conservatives to represent a hardliner approach in order to keep racists and bigots on board, it was disappointing that Starmer decided to use Tory talking points as part of his questions. The only positives in the exchange between the Labour leader and the Prime Minister was a joke at Suella Braverman's expense and Paul Bristow Tory MP being kicked out of the chamber by the Speaker of the House. Have a listen to this.
How many work visas were issued to foreign nationals last year?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the new statistics, as the honourable gentleman knows, will be out later this week. The most recent statistics we have, as the ONS said at the time, contained a set of unique circumstances, including welcoming many people here for humanitarian reasons.
But they're not work visas. Like, people arriving for humanitarian reasons are not counted as work visas. What are you talking about? Does he not understand the difference between somebody arriving on a work visa and somebody arriving for humanitarian reasons? Is he really that stupid? Or does he believe the public are that stupid?
They're not work visas.
The figures are out. It's 250,000 work visas were issued last year. He knows that answer. He just doesn't want to give it. And the new numbers tomorrow are expected to be even higher. The Prime Minister stood on 3 Tory manifestos. Each one promised to reduce immigration. Each promise broken. They all stood on those manifestos as well. Why does he think his Home Secretary...
Order. I'm going to hear this question. Those who don't want to hear it, we know the answer. Keir Starmer.
They all stood on those manifestos. So why does he think his Home Secretary seems to have such a problem coping with points-based systems?
Okay, that's a joke, obviously, at Suella Braverman's expense because she had a problem with points on her licence this week. But I understand what Starmer is doing here. He is attacking the Tories on their policies. You know, you said you'd bring down immigration. You haven't done that. Immigration, the number of visas that have been issued has gone up. Now, most reasonable people don't have a problem with that. But what the Labour Party are doing here is they're attacking the Tories on that issue. They shouldn't be attacking, because you should be issuing more visas, because students coming in contribute to society, workers coming in contribute to society, and there's a shortage of workers at the minute.
Well, Mr. Speaker...
And the same respect will be shown, Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, just this week we announced the biggest ever single measure to tackle legal migration, removing the right for international students to bring dependents, toughening the rules on post-study work, and reviewing maintenance requirements. But what is the honourable gentleman's contribution? There are absolutely no ideas. There is absolutely no ideas, absolutely no semblance that there would be any control. Why? Because he believes in an open-door migration policy.
He doesn't. He talks about a point-based system. Like, once again, Rishi Sunak has no argument here. All he does is lie. Just like Boris, he's been watching Boris Johnson videos of his time as at PMQs and trying to emulate that. Lie about the opposition and hope that it will land some sort of punch.
Mr. Speaker, if anyone wants to see what uncontrolled immigration looks like, all they've got to do is wake up tomorrow morning, listen to the headlines, and see what this government...
Order. Mr. Bristow, I think you're going to be leaving. I'm asking you to leave now, because otherwise I'll name you. I'm not having it, and I've warned you before. It's the same people.
Good. Kick the guy out. Like, one thing is responding to lies. Another thing is heckling. And of course, the Tory MP here was heckling the leader of the opposition, who's asking questions.
And the same will happen on this side. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the reason they're issuing so many visas is labour and skills shortages. And the reasons there are shortages is the low-wage Tory economy.
No, because of Brexit. There's a shortage because of Brexit. Now, unfortunately, Labour won't talk about Brexit. It's very disappointing. You know, he could be very honest here and say the reason there's a shortage is because of Brexit and the type of Brexit that we got from the Tories. But it's always disappointing when we see Brexit right in front of us and the Labour Party don't.
Under his government's rules, businesses in IT, engineering, healthcare, architecture, welding can pay foreign workers 20% less than British workers for years and years on end. Does he think his policy is encouraging businesses to train people here or hire from abroad?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about immigration, but we know his position because it turns out that Labour would actually like to see even more people coming to the UK, increasing the numbers. That's not just my view, Mr. Speaker. Those were the words of his own frontbencher who said having a target isn't sensible and that the numbers might have to go up, Mr. Speaker. So it's clear, whilst we're getting on with clamping...
Well, there's a difference between saying the numbers might have to go up and we want the numbers to go up.
Down on legal migration, listening to the British public, he's perfectly comfortable wanting to say that he wants free movement back.
When did he say that? Once again, lies. It's all Rishi Sunak has is lies. He doesn't actually have a real rebuttal.
Here's Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, they've lost control of the economy, they've lost control of public services, and now they've lost control of immigration. And if he was serious about weaning his government off the immigration lever, he would get serious about wages in Britain and get serious about skills and training. The apprenticeship levy isn't working. It's hard to find a single business that thinks that it is. And the proof is that almost half the levy isn't even being spent. That's fewer young people getting the opportunities they need to fulfil their potential. Businesses are crying out for more flexibility in the levy so they can train up their staff. Labour would give them that. Why won't he?
It's a clever way of approaching the question, approaching the issue. Instead of saying, this is a problem, he's saying, they see it as a problem. So instead of saying, businesses shouldn't be relying on immigration, he's suggesting, Starmer here, he's suggesting that, well, the Tories are saying that we shouldn't be relying on foreign labour. And what are you going to do about it? This is your promise. Why aren't you doing something about it?
Mr. Speaker, it's right that we're talking about education and skills. What he failed to mention is just in the past week, what did we discover? Thanks to the reforms of the Conservative government, our young people are now the best readers in the Western world, Mr. Speaker. Reforms that were opposed by the party opposite. He also talked about our record.
Sorry, what reforms? What reforms were opposed by the by the Labour Party?
On the economy. And I am very surprised, Mr. Speaker, because I've stood here week after week when he's been so keen to quote the IMF, Mr. Speaker. He seemed to have missed their press conference yesterday, where they actually raised our growth forecast by one of the highest they've ever done, said that we've acted decisively to make sure that the economy is growing, and credited this government with having a very positive effect on future growth.
It was 0.4%. You know, the economists and political commentators and journalists were saying there's nothing to write home about here. Yes, the IMF raised the forecast, but you know what also was going to be raised? Interest rates. So poor people and middle class people are going to suffer anyway.
Is the Prime Minister seriously suggesting that breaking the economy, breaking public services, losing control of immigration is some sort of carefully crafted plan? His policies are holding working people back, and all he offers is more of the same. But fear not, because speeding into the void left by the Prime Minister comes the Home Secretary. Not with a plan for skills, growth or wages, no. Her big idea is for British workers to become fruit pickers. Just in case, I can hardly believe she said this, that they forget how to do things. Does the Prime Minister support this let them pick fruit ambition for Britain? Or does he wish he had the strength to give her a career change of her own?
Look, once again, I don't see the value in attacking individuals here. You know, her policy is ridiculous, but I think there's too much focus on Suella Braverman herself and not the policies that she represents.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about public service, he talks about the economy. Again, I think he's just failed to notice what's going on. The IMF, as they've said, it's right here.
Yes, the IMF, as we said before, has upgraded their forecast to 0.4%. Notice that Rishi Sunak is not mentioning the number, because the number is pathetic. Just like this PMQs, once again, PMQs is a disappointment. I've covered it here, and I'd like to know your comments in the comment section, of course. But it is, once again, a bit of theatre that achieves pretty much nothing. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.